Forces us to confront the reality that monsters are not just figures in fairy tales. Sometimes they live among us, hidden behind the facade of a normal life, until one day, the mask comes off. Who was Eliasard Monaeus? A Haitian immigrant, husband and father, his life in Lafayette seemed hopeful, yet beneath the surface darkness grew. The tragedy that followed shattered a family and a community, raising questions about warning signs, justice, and how we protect the vulnerable. This is a story of heartbreak and consequence. Every story has a beginning. For Eliasard Monaeus, it started in Haiti, marked by hardship, hope, and a journey to Lafayette, Indiana. He left behind poverty and trauma, seeking safety and a new life in America. But the scars of his past would follow him, shaping the man he became. In Lafayette, that fragile hope would soon be shattered in unimaginable ways. Life in Lafayette was a stark contrast to everything Eliasard Monaeus had known. The rhythm of the city was different, the culture was different, and even the language was different. Immigrating is more than just changing your address. It's about, rebuilding your entire identity in a foreign land. While America offered opportunity, it also presented a whole new set of challenges. There was the constant pressure to assimilate, to find work, and to navigate a complex society without the familiar support systems of home. For Monaeus, these pressures were a daily reality, a quiet undercurrent of stress that flowed beneath the surface of his new life, a constant low hum of anxiety. He found work, which, honestly, was a crucial step toward establishing stability. But the dream of prosperity is often met with the reality of low-wage jobs and the struggle to make ends meet. Financial stress is a heavy burden for any family, but for an immigrant trying to gain a foothold, it can feel suffocating. Every bill, every unexpected expense, can feel like a threat to the fragile life you are trying to build. This kind of pressure can strain relationships and fray nerves, creating an environment where small conflicts can easily escalate into something much more dangerous. It's a silent struggle that many newcomers face, hidden behind a brave face. Beyond the financial struggles, there was the profound sense of isolation. Being far from home means being cut off from family, friends, and the cultural touchstones that provide comfort and a sense of belonging. Even in a friendly town like Lafayette, it is possible to feel utterly alone, misunderstood, and adrift in a sea of unfamiliar faces and customs. This isolation can take a toll on a person's mental health, leading to feelings of depression, anger, and hopelessness. The old shadows of past trauma can grow longer and darker when you feel like you have no one to turn to, no one who truly understands what you have been through. This was the backdrop of Eliasard Monaes's life in America. He was a man caught between two worlds. On one hand, there was the hope for a brighter future, the promise that had driven him on his long journey. On the other, there were the persistent shadows of his past and the daily pressures of his present. He was trying to build a new life on a foundation that was perhaps more unstable than anyone knew. The quiet life he was leading in Lafayette was not as peaceful as it appeared from the outside. It was a life filled with silent battles that he was, it seems, ultimately losing. Amidst hardship, Eliasard Monaes found hope in starting a family. He married, and soon, they welcomed baby Jacob in spring 2024. Parenthood brought joy, but also immense pressure, especially for immigrants facing financial and emotional strain. The dream of a happy family quickly became a heavy burden. Eliasard struggled to balance his new responsibilities with the weight of his past. The promise of family, once a beacon, now added to the storm brewing beneath the surface. The image of a happy family was only a facade. Behind closed doors, stress and trauma fractured their home. Court records later revealed 2 prior domestic battery charges against Monaes, clear warning signs. The arrival of baby Jacob intensified the tension. His wife lived in fear, trapped in a cycle of abuse and uncertainty. The system had been alerted, but the danger remained. The Monaes family's foundation was crumbling, with tragedy looming. On an August morning in 2024, a small argument ignited years of tension. What began as a minor dispute quickly escalated. Overwhelmed by anger, she faced an agonizing choice: call the police and risk escalation, or wait in terror. Meanwhile, Eliasard's anger only grew as he wandered with their son. He had a chance to turn back, but didn't. The situation shifted from domestic dispute to abduction. Darkness deepened, and the next move would be devastating. He attacked his wife with brutal force, fracturing her skull. The home became a scene of horror. She fought to survive, desperate to know her baby's fate. The assault ended with her gravely injured and Jacob still missing. Her world was shattered. The nightmare was now reality. Eliasard vanished, leaving devastation behind. The worst was yet to come. What started as a family argument had become a desperate hunt for a missing child. Every second now mattered. Killing the staff. Her baby was missing. Police rushed to the scene, searching for clues. The city held its breath as officers hunted for a violent fugitive and a helpless infant. The alarm had been sounded, echoing through Lafayette's quiet streets. Lafayette was on edge. Police searched through the night, their lights sweeping alleys and parks. The community held its breath as news of a missing child spread. Parents checked on their own kids, fear creeping in. As dawn broke, hope faded. The searchers returned to the apartment, desperate not to miss a single clue. The following morning, investigators returned to the Monius family apartment. The yellow crime scene tape was a stark reminder of the violence that had occurred there just hours before. The initial sweep had been about securing the scene and looking for obvious clues. This time the search would be different. It would be slow, methodical, and exhaustive. They had to operate under the assumption that some clue, some piece of evidence had been overlooked. They were searching for anything that could tell them where Eleazar had gone. But what they would find was something far more terrible, something that would end the search in the most devastating way possible. They moved through the small apartment, room by room, examining every detail. It was in a closet that they found it, a 5-gallon bucket. It was sealed. The container seemed out of place, its presence unsettling. An officer, driven by a gnawing suspicion, carefully pried open the lid. The air was immediately filled with the overpowering chemical scent of laundry detergent. And there, submerged in the thick blue liquid, was a small, still form. It was the body of a baby. It was Jacob. The frantic, desperate search was over. All hope for a rescue, for a miracle, evaporated in that single, soul-crushing moment of discovery. The scene was one of unimaginable horror, a sight that would be seared into the memories of the seasoned officers who made the discovery. The man they were hunting had not taken his son with him when he fled. He had committed the ultimate act of betrayal before he even returned to attack his wife. He had murdered his own child and hidden his tiny body in the most callous and calculated way, leaving him in that bucket like a piece of discarded trash. The pure evil of the act was staggering. It was not a crime of passion. It was a cold, cruel, and deliberate murder of a defenseless 3-month-old infant. The news from the apartment sent a shockwave through the entire police department and the community. The Amber Alert was canceled. The search for a missing child became a homicide investigation. The focus now shifted entirely to finding Eleazar Moneas, not as a kidnapper, but as a murderer. The tragic tale had reached its darkest chapter. The question of where is Jacob had been answered in the most horrific way imaginable. The truth was worse than anyone's worst fear, a nightmare made real inside a quiet Lafayette apartment, hidden within a sealed bucket of blue liquid. The discovery of baby Jacob's body ended the search and began a murder investigation. Forensic teams collected evidence and the manhunt for Eleazar Moneas swept Indiana. He was soon captured, and prosecutors charged him with murder and more. The community grieved as the wheels of justice began to turn. The journey through the court system can be a long and arduous one. It often involves months, sometimes years, of legal maneuvers, hearings, and psychological evaluations before a trial even begins. For the victim, Eleazar's wife, this process can mean reliving the trauma over and over again. The prospect of a full trial loomed large, a public spectacle where she would have to take the stand, face her attacker, and recount in excruciating detail the worst day of her life. The community braced for a painful legal battle, one that would dredge up all the horrifying details of the crime for public examination. It was a necessary part of justice, but a painful one nonetheless. But then, in May of 2025, something unexpected happened. As the case was moving toward trial, Eleazar Moneas decided to change his plea. Perhaps it was the crushing weight of the evidence against him, the certainty of a conviction. Or perhaps in the quiet solitude of his jail cell, some sliver of conscience emerged from the darkness. Whatever the reason, he chose to forego a trial. He agreed to plead guilty. It was a stunning development, one that would spare his wife the agony of testifying and the community the pain of a prolonged and graphic trial. He was ready to admit what he had done. In a quiet courtroom, stripped of the drama of a jury trial, Eleazar Moneas stood before the judge. He pleaded guilty to the two most serious charges, the murder of his 3-month-old son Jacob, and the attempted murder of his wife. The confession was delivered in the cold, sterile light of the law. He admitted to taking his son's life. He admitted to trying to kill his wife with a tire iron. The words hung in the air, a stark and chilling acknowledgement of the evil he had unleashed. The legal fight was over. There was no more doubt, no more denial. There was only the truth, confessed from the mouth of the killer himself. The guilty plea brought a strange sense of relief mixed with sorrow. It accelerated the path to a final judgment, providing a swift, if not satisfying conclusion to the legal proceedings. For his wife, it meant she would not have to endure the cross-examination, the public scrutiny, the retelling of her horror. It was a small mercy in a story that had none. The case now moved directly to its final chapter, sentencing. The only question that remained was not whether Eliasard Monaeus was guilty, but what price he would pay for shattering so many lives with his bare hands and a heart full of rage. On July 1, 2025, Eliasard Monaeus returned to the Tippecanoe County Courthouse for sentencing. The courtroom was somber as the judge delivered a 92-year sentence, effectively life in prison. Justice was served, but for the family, the true sentence was a lifetime of grief. The legal chapter was closed. The judge's gavel falls, the courtroom doors close, and the killer is sent away. But for Eliasard Monaeus' wife, this is not the end. Her scars, both visible and invisible, remain. She wakes each day with the memory of what was lost, piecing together a shattered life, one day at a time. Her story is a powerful reminder. The true sentence is carried by those left behind. The Monaeus case left an indelible mark on the city of Lafayette. A crime of this magnitude does not just affect the immediate family, it sends a tremor through the entire community. It shatters the collective sense of safety and security that people cherish in a place they call home. Suddenly the world feels a little less safe, a little more unpredictable. Neighbors who once felt a comfortable distance from the horrors on the national news were now confronted with the reality that such darkness could erupt in their own backyard, on a quiet street just like theirs. The illusion of immunity was gone, replaced by a lingering sense of vulnerability and sadness. In the days and weeks following the discovery of Jacob's body, the community came together in grief. Spontaneous memorials appeared, with teddy bears, flowers, and candles left in public spaces as a tribute to the infant whose life was cut so tragically short. Strangers who had never met the family felt a connection to their pain, a shared sense of loss for an innocent child. These vigils and memorials were more than just gestures. They were a way for the community to process its collective shock and sorrow, to stand in solidarity against the darkness, and to affirm their shared values of compassion and humanity in the face of an inhuman act. The case also sparked difficult conversations among the residents of Lafayette. People began to talk more openly about domestic violence, mental health, and the struggles faced by immigrant communities. How could this have happened? Were there signs that were missed? What can be done to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again? These were not easy questions, and there were no simple answers. But the willingness to ask them was a crucial step toward healing. The tragedy forced the community to look inward, to examine its own support systems, and to consider how it could better protect its most vulnerable members from falling through the cracks. Even after the trial concluded, and Eliasard Monaeus was sentenced, the story remained a part of the town's fabric. It became a cautionary tale, a somber piece of local history that would be remembered for generations. The name Jacob Monaeus would not be forgotten. He became a symbol of lost innocence, a reminder of the preciousness of life and the devastating consequences of unchecked violence. The community of Lafayette mourned not just for the baby they never knew, but for the piece of their own innocence that was lost along with him on that dark August day. The impact of a crime like this ripples outward, touching not just the family but first responders, legal teams, and the entire community. First responders and police carry the weight of what they witness, long after their shift ends. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, and judges are changed by the cases they handle. the Haitian community feels the shadow of one person's actions. These stories remind us of life's fragility and the need for compassion and vigilance. Sure, help is always within reach. Even in darkness, courage and hope can shine through. We owe it to Jacob and all victims to never look away. The story of Eliasard Moneas and his family is a profound human tragedy, a journey from hope to horror, ending in unimaginable loss. The pain echoes through the years, a constant reminder of innocence lost and lives destroyed by violence. The shadow of this tragedy lingers, a cautionary tale for every community. Of a survivor, the unity of a community, and the pursuit of justice, a faint glimmer emerges. We honor Jacob by striving for a safer world, one where compassion, vigilance, and courage light the way forward.